I'd like to have a theme for today, and I thought that what a good theme with Canada would be Carpe Diem today. I think we should really take the opportunity to seize this day and the opportunities that we have here. We put this presentation on so we can bring people together who otherwise would really have a hard time ever communicating with one another. And I think the word yesterday, synergistic, was important from a mindset standpoint going through these days with these designers. So questions that might come up would be, you know, are there specific types of products that you out there are looking for us as growers to produce? Are there different types of foliage that we could come up with that maybe we don't know about, that trends are happening? I know that when I was doing a lot of interior stuff in California, moss is still a really hot product. We could, I don't know where moss is, we would buy mood moss from all over the world, but we can grow mood moss out here. We can do a lot of different products that maybe you don't think of that are complementary to your products as well. So during the day, seize this moment and ask the questions. We can get them in front of the people who can create these products for you. So in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to roll with our video that is Say I Do with Tropical Nouveau Design. This is with Hitomi Gilliam, and then that's going to also bring in Bruno Duarte on the backside of Hitomi. So go ahead and enjoy these videos. We'll be back after this for some Q&As. Think of some great questions for these incredible people that you have access to today. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Aloha from Bowen Island, actually. It's a little bit chilly. It's getting to be into the late fall, and so we're a little bit doubled up with clothing, unlike if you were in Hawaii. But we're still feeling the spirit of Hawaii with all these beautiful flowers that were shipped in from the Big Island, from some of the growers of the HFNA. So this morning, we're gonna start out with Neotropica Design, designing with all tropical flowers for wedding events and, you know, home decor for the bride's house. Lots of different ideas that's great for decorating for the wedding. So I'm going to start out with design that where I created the structure itself, because some of these structures that you can build for designing with tropicals may make the actual designing of flowers into it very, very simple. It's set up so that there's water tubes that's wrapped with actually the washi paper that's wrapped up around the water tube, some of them through the middle. Like through this middle band here, it's held back with the glass tube so that gives you extension on both sides to attach extra vines so that you can create a kind of a low horizontal design very simply by using a lot of the beautiful tropicals that we got from Hawaii. So I'm going to start out by showing you how I started with the vine. And there's water inside of this container as well. So there's actually several different sources where the water could be reached. So I have the water in this tin container here, as well as water tubes that's being installed that has, that's going to have some water in it so that they can hold flowers with a water source. And then there's also some of the tubes are just wrapped up, just rolled up paper. And these don't have any water tube, but we have an ability to put some water into those that I will show shortly. So I'm going to start out with adding a couple more passion vine. And the passion vine has been stripped to the extent that you can see a little bit more of the beautiful tendrils that I so admire about it. And I'm going to use a little bit of bind wire. So I'm going to have some bind wire cut so that they're ready to use for attaching. So that it gives you that extension with a little bit of greens on the tip. I've actually basically cut out a lot of the bigger leaves through the middle so that it really leaves more for some of the flowers to show up a little bit better. And I'm going to bring this back in to the water, like right here, and maybe slip this in behind so that it stays in that position. So we'll start out with that, and that gives you that extension that we're looking for. I'm attaching this particular piece, which is the one that I just strung over there, that I'm going to then attach to the bind wire here as well, so that it gives you that extension on either end. Next, I want to use the areca palm that's been trimmed on either side. So even though they're really a bit broad looking foliage, I'm getting something a little bit nice and sleek out of it. And I'm going to actually attach it to a spot in between some of those tubes so that it sort of lodges in there and gives us a nice kind of a curvilinear line that flows across to the back side. And then I'm going to take another one. So I'm going to go in here, and these are not going to be in water because they're going to hold up really nicely without. So I'm just going to flow that through the other side so that it gives me a very nice curvilinear arcing flow back and forth. So that's how I'm going to start. That gives us a much more extension of this piece here to have that extended out on both sides. And then I'm going to now take the challah, and I'm going to take this and use the scissors and sort of slice it to get a nice flowy line out of it, and it's rather limp. And I'm going to do that on the other side as well. It's just another way of using this broad foliage. It's skinny, long, but it is broad when you put it in terms of in relationship with some of the flowers, and sort of bendy. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put this through this so that it goes underneath and it gives us a little bit more curvilinear flow. So let's do that. So with this, then brought over and through. It gives us a lot more interesting flow. So next, I'm going to use the Tillandsia xerographica, the air plants. And I've been taking pieces off of it to the side so that it really emulates the similar curvilinear flow that I'm starting to establish with the vines. And I'm gonna just tuck these in. They're air plants, so they don't need any water at all. So I'm just gonna tuck them in. And they're things that if I'm using in the event work, like a wedding, I might use it over and over again. That, you know, after I disassemble some of the designs from a previous week. So I'm just going to be tucking these in from this side, and I'll do so on the other side as well. The other side is actually the front of this design. But you can see that there's just spots here that I can just tuck these in and get that kind of almost like a pigtail kind of a look in this with this material that looks really graceful. On this side, what I'm going to take is a main core, a few leaves that are still in the main core. I'm going to actually tuck them in to the bottom, and then I'm going to tuck these ones in above so that it repeats that same feel on the frontal side. So basically what I'm trying to do is establish a nice sort of parameter, like a template for this whole design, a beautiful flow, a lot of just curvilinear on curvilinear so that you can see the beautiful flow horizontally. That's what I'm doing first. I'm going to also now use some foliage, and I have this gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous Alocasia amazonica, and I'm going to use two of them, one on the front side and one on the back side. Because they're short stems, so I can put it up into one of the, I think I'm going to put it in one of the water tube. So on this side, I may just put that in one of the water tube. This one here, what I'm gonna do is, because I don't have a water tube where I would really like it, so I'm gonna take actually a equisetum, and I'm gonna cut it so that there's the water tube right here, and I'll go a little longer, like that, and I'm gonna slip that into the water tube. So it plugs in. So what I wanna do is actually fill that with water first, like that, and slip that in so that it has contact with water. And then I'm going to slip this in to actually go into that lower section with water. But it seems like this is a little bit high, so I'm just going to cut that down a little bit so that it goes in. And it actually covers up that little stick as well. So now we have foliage on both sides. And you can see that sort of the purpley tone of the backside of the leaf that looks really gorgeous. So now we have a beautiful foliage treatment all the way around. So next I'm going to actually add the fluffy rabbit's foot fern so that it has a little bit more greenery through the middle over those sticks. So what I'm going to do is take Equisetum, and this is a tip, and so this becomes a water tube. And what I want to do is take a little bit of chenille that's been cut into a V, stuff it in there like that. I actually filled that with water, and then I'm going to insert this end of this rabbit foot fern here. So now this has water, so this can be placed literally anywhere. So I'm going to go in and tuck it in, like maybe in here, like so. And then I'm going to put that piece of fern right into that so that there's water. So then I'm going to take this and actually bind wire it so it stays in place horizontally but slightly forward. So it gives it a little bit more dimension. And then next I'm going to go into getting the Anthurium in. So I'm going to take these Anthurium and take some of these, maybe coming out of this tube here, some of these shorter ones. There's another one right here, water tube right there. So that maybe this can work a little bit in tandem. Maybe this one going that way, this that way. So next I'm going to work with the orchids because that's going to really basically dress up this horizontal design. So first I have some Cymbidium orchids that's being cut and being hydrated overnight. I'm going to put these in with the V, with the chenille, and tuck those in tight so it stays in nice and solid. And of course, we put water in it as well. So then these then can be actually just nestled in to just different spots in this design, just tucked in. So there's one there. This serves kind of like a cotton batten that you might sometimes see at the bottom of some of the orchids. This just keeps it, so it holds it really nice and tight inside of that water tube. And then I'm able to just nestle them in different spots where I want to see the orchids in this design, the Cymbidiums. So I'm just putting the Dendrobium orchid into the water tube with the chenille so that these are the next pieces that I'll be just slipping into this structure. And by this time, we have a lot of material flowing through. And so this just fits into different areas of this structure. And so it's just basically being styled in. It's not being designed into any, it's not like foam where it's going into foam. It's just going into the structure itself. And this one here, I want it a little bit lower, so I'm just gonna slip that in. Rest the tip on that rod, so it's sort of hung up in there, and then I'm gonna bring it back in to the structure. So it fits in locks in to the structure here. So this is the final result, a very horizontal design, but very curvilinear. And the softness of the different textures of materials, the smoothness of the anthuriums, the alocasia leaf, the drama of it, but it's softened by the use of the rabbitfoot fern, the plumosa fern, the lightness of the Dendrobium orchids. The orchids really does add the softness when you work with all tropicals. You really want the tropical, the hardness of anthuriums contrasted with the softness of orchids. And I think when you combine the two, in this particularly the gray, green, and a white design, it looks very soft and romantic. That's perfect for wedding work. So in my sort of series of horizontal designs that I've been doing that I showed you previously, and I'll follow up with 2 more. This one is one that is one of my latest, and it's the coolest, I think, because it really has a painted, dried materials, all of it, almost all of it tropicals. There's a little bit of Chinese lantern in there, so it is, I guess, a tropical nouveau in this makeup here. But in most part, it's some of the Chinese fan palm, there's some Strelitzia foliage, there's some fishtail palm, infructants. There's just all different kinds of dried materials that are tropicals in here, Tillandsia as well, all painted white, so that it gives you a really nice canvas of white to work off of. So it's on the board, and I actually use it for a planter that hangs on the wall, but it's one of those kind of a mechanic that we can use in different ways because it's permanent. So what I did was set it on top of some cylinder vases, 4 cylinder vases of similar, equal size, and I set it on top of it so that I'm going to design through it using this as a little bit of mechanical background. So to start with, some of these cylinders are open on the edges so that you can design some stems into it. So they're like giant, really, water tubes. That's what they are. But this platform area, we can actually style some of the blooms in here so that it flows as sort of a low horizontal. So to start with, I'm going to take actually little chicken wire pillows, and I'm just going to kind of hook it right in there like that. I also have another one that I have hooked up over on this side here in this 1 cylinder here. I'm going to go ahead and take one of my chicken wire roll that's got a little bit of podocarpus in it, and I'm just going to sling it over this area here so that I can sort of flow some material through it. So I'm going to just kind of start with that for a start. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of, well, a couple stems of protea and pop it right in here to start. So I have 2 protea. That kind of holds this kind of in place. I'm going to take monstera leaf, and I'm going to go ahead and probably, well, maybe I'm going to put it right in here into the side and allow some of these fishtail palm infructants to just sort of flow over it. I also have a couple more. I'm going to come around the front because this is really the front. I'm going to take a couple of these proteas as well. And this one, I'll just slip it through there into that water. And this one here, I'm going to actually just flow it in and keep it out of water. Passion vine, and right in there, and just kind of bring it down through there so that it winds its way through and over. I'm gonna take this one here and allow that to flow into that water tube and let it kind of hook up into this piece of branch here so that it has that greenery flowing all the way through. I'm going to take this whale back and flow it through this one here and into the water. Likewise with this piece here to the front. And pretty soon what I'm going to do is I'm going to take podocarpus and cover up a little bit of the mechanics of the chicken wire pillow. So I'm going to do that. This one here has the podocarpus in it, but these other ones here, I'm going to just thread a little bit of these just short pieces of podocarpus to just get it somewhat greened up so that the chicken wire starts to disappear. Now, they don't have to go into water at all. It's just basically just to cover up the mechanics because they'll just dry and it's going to stay kind of internal inside of this mechanics. And it's just really to basically to cover it up. That's how I'm using it. I'm going to take this one as well and use it on the back side into that chicken wire pillow as well so that it covers it up. So I'm going to now go into this chicken wire roll that's got podocarpus in it, and I'm going to start to just insert some of these water tube in there. So there's one there, another one there. You know, it needs to be somewhat upright. Like I can kind of grade it so that it starts to go a little bit more upright and use it as a holder. So this allows for some stems of flowers to be in water. So that holds up a little bit better. Put some water in these. Some of these can't hold too much because it's on an angle, but enough to be able to, for it to have enough to last the flowers. So with the first one, I'm gonna go ahead and use this fluffy fern, and I'm going to thread it so that it comes down and over. So it gives you that nice soft touch, some greenery sort of floating about. And so it kind of gives you that nice coverage. Let's do another one. And let's stab it in this direction so we can have some of this flowing forward. So it just has a very nice flow. So next I'm going to put a couple more foliages. This is going to be the Anthurium clarinarium. So I'm just going to position it in such a way so that it floats right over the structure. And this one here, I'm going to tuck it in maybe into the chicken wire pillow, and so that it kind of adds that little bit of exciting drama to the front side of this protea. So next I'm going to start putting in the white dendrobium. Because of the white painted surfaces on the inside, I want to extend out with the fresh material. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and slip it right in so that it flows out of that vase. You just want to position it so that it does go into the vase and the water. So you want to kind of get it in there so that it flows out. This is just a nice short piece so that it can just flow out forward. We want to put that from the back vase because we do have two vases to work out of, one in the back as well, so that we're working from the back forward. And then we're going to go into this vase here, in through the chicken wire so that it flows outward, a little bit forward, a little bit to the back, so that it sort of comes from that chicken wire pillow over on this side as well. So next I want to go into the green Midori Anthurium. So I want to place some of those. And these ones, some of these are little shorts, but they can be just popped into spots right in there. This one maybe into that tube so that you have a nice big piece in there. Another one sort of floating forward. Maybe coming out of this one. And this one coming out of that vase, just a short one, a long one with that tortilla coming out. And the green Midori just flowing through. Maybe another one coming from underneath here into the chicken wire pillow. And then we're gonna go into a little bit of orchids, the purple. So let's pop that in there. Whoops, that's not in water. Let's get that right. These are beautiful macaras from Hawaii. This one flowing through the chicken wire pillow and flowing forward. And then we're gonna work with a little bit more deeper, sort of purpley dendrobium to just intensify the color purple a little bit more. So we're gonna flow that through all of this. These shorts could be tucked into these water tubes that are in that chicken wire roll so that it has a water source right in there. What's really kind of cool about all of this is that white structure, the painted structure, actually has a little bit of opening here and there so that you can sort of allow some of the stems to flow out of it. Some of it goes right through to the other side so we can catch it with water tube on the other end. But, and over here, the chicken wire pillow is holding these stems in place. So until you have, you know, all of your flowers that you've budgeted for this piece used up, you get a beautiful tropical kind of a feel out of this mixture of material based out of the white painted dried material. So you can see that this is finished and the water tubes are really, the cylinders are the water tubes. So some of the stems the longer stems are going in through the structure into the water or the cylinders. And so you have really a beautiful array of combination of Cymbidium orchids, the Dendrobium orchids, the Makara orchids, to go with the Proteas and the Anthuriums, the combination, so that you really are breaking the surface of some of the real hard surface of Anthurium, of the foliages, and the flowers, the Midoris, with the softness of the orchids, which gives us the textural contrast that's really required when you're designing all with tropicals. So Neotropica, design, the new ways of designing with all tropicals is really about combination of working with orchids and Anthuriums, foliages, and tropicals all together. So the color is the segue that helps tie it all together. And this gives you a beautiful, like a buffet type table design that you can have food underneath, flowing through, lots of clearance underneath so that there's room for things on the table. So I'm just going with the theme of the horizontals because some of this really lends itself beautifully to table arrangement, especially for banquet style tables. And so for the third one of the horizontal, I just wanted to show you mechanics that will lend itself to your flowering in whatever choice of flowers that you want. But you can see by what I created that it starts with a set of two IKEA lampstand that were just not extended so high as they come, but just a little bit shorter, about half the height of the lamps. And those become the holder. And you saw how I did it with a wood slats that goes across, that it fits perfectly across the two of these stands. And then extended out with the chicken wire roll stuffed with podocarpus, so that gives you that sort of the stab point, the insertion points for all the flowers that will be either in water tube or free stemmed, depending on how long the event is for. If it's for a wedding, it just basically needs to last about 12 hours from the time of installation. And the installation, a lot of it, the flowers themselves could be done on site. You can have the greens prepared like this in advance, and then you just go and stab in the flowers into it with water tube or free stemmed. And so you saw how I did it, just using the rod of the stands to be the holder on either side, creating this space in between so that when you're sitting at the table, you're seeing through, but you actually have a canopy of flowers above. And the chicken wire makes it possible, especially with a podocarpus filled in the middle, to disappear very quickly, especially when you put in a few greens in there. And I used like materials like Curly Lawai that really fills out really nicely. As well, I used the beautiful passion vines with some of the leaves still on it. So it really feels like kind of under the canopy of the rainforest, the ferns. So again, really playing on some of the real softer material that really gives you that feeling of romance for a wedding. That really works really well. So I can see this, with the monsteras being some of the more dominant, very strong tropical look, and the palm, the Aurica palm, giving that light, nice and soft extension that are curvilinear. Also the whaleback, and you can see when this is outdoors, you see the sun shining through it, and you get a lot of transparency. See, with some of these greenery, which is so beautiful. The lighting just really brings out the kind of a lime greenness of some of these foliages as the light comes through, and it's just so lovely. And seeing some of the tendrils very much more prominently because of the lighting coming from behind. So it makes for a very beautiful romantic setting. And so how you flower it, it's up to you, but it's just a matter of water tubing and just popping it in. It could be dendrobiums. The orchids are really lovely, and Anthuriums flowing down. You'll be sitting under the canopy of that beautiful rainforest look. So for the final piece, I decided to come inside because it was getting a little chilly outside. And I wanted to do it vertical because I've done 3 horizontals, different ways of doing horizontals. And I thought it would be a good idea to show vertical, and especially to show some of the big, heavy, like the tropicals, like the heliconias, how to design with that sustainably without use of foam. So I ended up using actually in the white container, which is the syndicate sales container, with a 10-inch or it might be 12-inch holly pillow that sits on top of it, fits perfect. And with using some willow sticks structures that I create, I went vertical along with, and I think you might have seen that in some of the close-ups, that you can see the column of chicken wire roll that was wrapped with the banyan roots, so that it has that very earthy kind of a feel in the structure itself, with a brown willow and the banyan roots in the wrap, as well as some it's sort of all put together into a nice strand that's curvilinear that really created the structure here. And this allows for a lot of points of attachment for some of the vines. Like I actually ended up using a couple of little temperate things just because to get that feel of the fall. I used the ilex in the kind of a peachy color, and I also used a little bit of the bittersweet that has a red and orange or red and yellow that seems to go really so good with this combination of flowers. So this is a vertical arrangement, no foam. Everything is in water with some rocks at the bottom of the container as well. It's a white container. People say to me, I think it's not a good idea to use a white container with like colors like this, that it seems very stark, but just you can see that I used the painting that I created, the 3D high relief painting with dry tropicals. I mean, these are actually absolutely wonderful Strelitzia Nicolai, half cut and dried. It's just so beautiful in combination with, there's some Anthurium that's been painted white here. There's all different kinds of like the fishtail palm strands, infructans that's been painted. So it really gives you the background of a painting that relates to what's going on, the container to match with this background. So I was able to use a lot of exciting tropical sunset colors with the orchids and Anthurium. I used a lot of different varieties. I just want to switch over here so you can see a little bit and point out. So with the orchids, I used the Aranda orchids in that kind of a bronzy color, as well as Aranthera, Kapoho Fire. Those are the beautiful little red blossoms to blend in with bittersweet and the ilex. I have pincushion protea, just a couple of them that's in an orange tone. But in the background is a great deal of beautiful collection of Anthuriums. Everything from the big obake type here, the real deep color that ranges from the green to burgundy, and then the red. There's a couple of those. I have choco, which is that real rich brown color, beautiful big size Anthurium here. Also, I have the safari, that kind of slightly striped, real burgundy in there. And then there's several different varieties of reds, from sort of watermelon red to a brilliant tropic fire, the bright red. And so you really have this beautiful tapestry of colors with the safari, or with the Anthuriums that is combined and then anchored with the monstera leaf at the bottom. So where would I put something like this at a wedding? I'm thinking that there's opportunities in decorating the bride's home for the, pre-event, when everybody's getting together, families getting together, and you have a very rich color to tie in to the home, in a lot of browns and, some of the sunset colors that is inside the home with wood beams and that. And then with the painting in the background that's white, it seems like such a great drama to be able to bring some of the sunset colors of tropicals. And so I thought this was a perfect piece to introduce a lot of red into something that could be part of the wedding event. I hope you enjoyed my 4 Neotropica horizontals and a vertical. So next we're going to Bruno Duarte from Fresh Floral Creations, another fellow Canadian designer from Toronto. I was able to catch up with him last week, and so let's head on over there and see what he's got to share with us. Hey Bruno, I can't believe that I'm seeing you virtually again. I think we were supposed to be in Hawaii together to do this, right? But darn it, you're in Toronto.
I was so excited to be going to Hawaii.
I know, and here we are, you're in Toronto, and here I am on Bowen Island, British Columbia. But I'm so pleased to have you, Bruno Duarte from Fresh Floral Creations from Toronto. You're going to be doing a lot of things to do with the Neotropica design, which is all tropicals this year for wedding celebrations. Yes. And we're super excited to see what you got up your sleeve. So take it away, Bruno.
Thank you so much, Hitomi. It's so nice to be invited back, and can't wait to show you what I've come up with. I am so excited to show you some amazing product that comes out of Hawaii, and HFNA has with these amazing roots. I've always, since I went there to visit Hawaii, when we were driving around, I was been amazed with all the different roots and stuff that they have growing naturally everywhere. So for this demonstration, I wanted to bring the roots into the display, into the designs. So for this first design I'm going to do is a table design, and I've created the wire structure with my paper covered wire on my thick wires. So this is my framework. And then we made long garlands with these roots. And now I'm going to show you how I wired it onto the structure. So basically I take my wax tape wires. I use a lot of them, and I kind of literally just attach along these long wires. I attach one wire, and I just kind of do a twist. So I have for this kind of circumference, I wouldn't do more than 4 wires going horizontally, just because then you don't have a lot of space. The main thing about this is that so you have space so you can insert like a water pick, so you have areas to insert your flowers and hide your mechanics. So I'm just going to start with just adding the wires to the structure.
So the roots that you're using, that would be the ficus roots or the banyan roots, right?
Banyan roots.
Awesome.
And then I'm also going to be using some monstera roots.
Great. So when you were in Hawaii, did you enjoy seeing all that beautiful natural material, the roots hanging everywhere? Was that enjoyable for you?
Absolutely. So it was kind of mesmerizing to see how long they are, because it's like, oh wow, because the one thing about these sort of structures is the fact that the longer the roots are, the faster I can make the structure. Exactly. And especially with because then you're not stopping and going a lot. So I've done one bind so far. So now when I go over again, I'm going to keep the same wires, but I'm now going to twist and actually twist on the inside, and then push your wires coming out, because you're going to come back around and then you just do a twist, and then you kind of alternate. One twist on the outside, one twist on the inside.
So this becomes something that you can use over and over again, this structure, after you spend a lot of time doing this.
Exactly. And of course, the more you do it, the faster you become at it.
Right. Are you able to kind of shape it as well, because it's all made out of wire?
Absolutely.
That's
cool.
So
the thing with this design is I created 2 of these structures, and I wanted them to intertwine. And of course, I didn't have enough roots to do 2, so I kept one to show you like the framework, and then one that I've already covered with roots.
One of the things that I've always marveled about Bruno is that he's so fast at crafting these, and for a lot of just basic everyday florists, it seems like a daunting task, but it really is all about practice, isn't it? The more you do, the faster you become.
the more you do it, the more comfortable you are. And also, as you're creating, you're going to come up into obstacles, and then it's like, oh, I can do it this way. Like for this challenge of creating, I came up with this crazy idea of let's do 2 structures. And then as I was creating it, it was like, how am I going to, first of all, calculate how many roots you need? So always order extra, because it's hard to say how many you're going to use, because depending on the length and how you, and they're not, I don't think they're a really expensive material, so you can get quite a bit coverage for not too much money. It's just you have to charge for your time, because it is very time consuming.
So you would do this for an item that you sell, but at the same time, you probably must use these for like rentals or rotational use, right?
Absolutely. For something like this, we definitely would use it for like corporate work for sure. I would even sell it to a wedding, just because if they want something really architectural and unique, I would sell that, but it would be like a rental of the structure, unless they want to purchase it. But most weddings, most brides don't want to be purchasing these kind of things. It's like, where are they going to put it afterwards? So it will be just a rental. And it gives you something very unique on the table, and different from what is usually seen.
Well, I think that's one of the things that you've created with your business is there's a certain signature style. A lot of what you do have a lot of really beautifully handcrafted structures in it, and you can only get that at Fresh Floral Creations, of course, and that's the big selling point, I think.
Yeah, it's just standing out amongst everybody else. Is been sort of like, especially when I first started, I want to kind of really to push the floral art aspect of floral design, and with having that, and sort of educating people that flowers don't have to be just flowers in a vase. It could be something else. You create some really cool structures that is almost like an art form, really.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that's just one of my sort of roots. So you get to cover quite a bit. So now I'm just going to I'm not going to add this one. You saw how I wired it, and you just continue. As soon as you finish your wire, you just add another wire, and you continue along this long wire. So then you have, it looks very clean. It kind of disappears as well. So now what I'm going to show you is this.
I love the natural, organic earthiness of it. I think that in itself makes me feel like, oh, the jungle,
Absolutely.
the rainforest.
And then also the thing with these is the fact that you can create so many. The main thing is, once you create your framework with your wires, it's endless possibilities. You literally just, like, whatever you dream up, and you can create the framework with it. Then you just cover it something organic, and then you have something to play with. So this is basically what I've done with. And the idea was that we'd have like a long table, and you have several of these going down the table to create something different and architectural. And what I've done here is, I'm going to remove this. And what I've done here is I've actually added Jasmine Vine and it's basically in these brown water picks, not brown, I kind of taped the water picks with the brown wax tape. And the reason why I did that is I find a lot of times when I do use water picks as my water source, I find that a lot of the water, because you put 1 or 2 stems, and then the water pick is upside down, the water just drains out, and then the flowers don't last. So with this, I find that the wax tape kind of keeps the water in. It gives you a little, keeps the water in the test tube for you, so the flowers will last longer. So I literally just kind of go with the wax tape on top of the water pick, and hold it with your index finger and thumb. So then you kind of cover the top, and then you just go around, and it kind of holds, then it just seals the water in there, so it doesn't slide underneath the cap as well. And you just kind of tape it. So you can kind of do that before you do any of the designs, so then the water doesn't evaporate as well, because you kind of kept it in there.
Actually, that's a fantastic idea, because one of the biggest eyesore of water tube is the cap. That's what makes it look so mechanical, so that you just completely camouflage it. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And now I'm going to use these amazing Anthurium. And the fact that I did the 4 wires, now it's very easy to move the roots and insert your test tubes. If you did 5 wires, because you have a less of a gap in between the roots to actually get in there and insert your flowers. So it's going to be a lot harder to. And one of the great things that I love about HFNA and Hawaii is the fact that not a lot of suppliers in Canada, we can get a lot of different size Anthurium flowers. And I find that with coming from Hawaii, you have the option of getting different size flower heads. So therefore, it kind of, because some of the really large ones that just wouldn't work in this design. So you kind of have the option of getting smaller heads, and then you can use a lot of repetition, which is a nice option to have.
So Bruno, when you order these,
Yes.
would this be the small or is this the designer size?
This is a small.
Uh-huh. Because that's one of the things that a lot of people need to sort of order to understand what the sizes are, because a lot of people, when they are accustomed to ordering mediums, and mediums from Hawaii is really quite big. And then don't ever,
Yes.
like if you're doing a regular bouquet, don't ever order large or extra large, because they would be way too big for usually, our size of bouquets. So knowing the sizes is really pretty important, isn't it?
Absolutely, and also just knowing how you're going to use it as well. Like for an everyday arrangement, this is a fantastic size, and also something that lasts for a very long time. So it's a very long-lasting flower. So it's great to use in everyday arrangements, but it's getting that size, being able to get that size.
So let me ask you this. So if this is for a wedding, and basically, from design time to installation time, and then the end dismantle time is, say, a window of 12 to 15 hours. Would you water tube all those, or would you actually free stem possibly?
No, I would just insert the stems, because the flowers will last easily. And then at the end of the night, I would just literally take out all the flowers and give them to the bride or give them to the guests so they can take them home and enjoy them, because it would be easy to dismantle as well.
Yeah, that's one of the real perks with tropicals, is they're reliable for lasting for the length of time that we need it for. That's fantastic.
Exactly. And also,
But I guess
the great thing. Go ahead.
I guess what I was going to say is, but if it's a corporate work and if it's going to be installed at the office and it needs to last a week, then you're going to use a water tube, right?
Absolutely. And I've in the last year, I've started using a lot of tropicals for my weekly standings, just because they are such a long-lasting flower. And and even with just the test tube, the water pick, they actually will they will last a week. So it's a great flexibility of a flower that will last, and you're not going to be getting a call saying, oh, the flowers are not looking great, 4 days into it. And I've actually, in the last couple of weeks, couple of my standings that I've done, I literally take it from our clients and literally put it on a window, and they still last another week. You just kind of top up the water in the water picks and then insert the flowers again into your design.
So you can actually get maybe two sets of design out of it, possibly.
Exactly.
With some of this,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's something you can't say too much about for a lot of other flowers. They are truly very long-lasting.
And because it's just the fact that it's like they're just not they're not made to last longer than 5 to 7 days max.
Right.
Whereas these you can easily get 2 weeks out of.
Yeah. Well, I even had like Midori Anthurium one time that I used for a photo shoot, last almost 6 weeks. By the time it started to. The key is to recut. And, at the end, I'm just floating in a bowl. But it lasted 6 weeks.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's seeing also the progression of how you reuse it and change it, and it's like, because it's like the flower head is still good as long as you're recutting it, so the stem is getting shorter, but you have other uses for it. I think we're almost there. I just love the look of these Anthurium on this structure.
That beautiful lime green on that brown.
Yeah, with a bit of pink.
So beautiful. Yeah. So beautiful. So will you be turning it around a little bit so we can see what you're seeing?
I sure will.
Oh gosh, that's lovely. That's wonderful.
Now I'm just going to add just some Alocasia foliage, just to give it a little bit. One of my favorites, and I think it's also one of your favorites.
Oh gosh.
Hitomi.
It's such, I mean, true to its common name, African mask, it's so exotic, isn't it?
Yeah, I just love like the white veins. It's just, I just needed something. This design just needed something to enhance the jasmine, a bit of the green, but this just such a nice dramatic, with the lines.
Yes, absolutely. And I see you're water tubing them because they do need the water, don't they?
Yes, yeah.
It really reminds me of it's like the primordial rainforest. It just makes you feel like transported to, and that's kind of what I talk about with the use of tropicals. It kind of transports you to a place you've been before where you felt this kind of energy, and that's what you've done, is kind of recreated that feeling.
Thank you. But and that's one of the things that I loved about my experience when I went to Hawaii, is the fact that you see all this beautiful vegetation that we usually work with. But when you actually see it in its natural habitat, it's just like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And you just kind of want to learn from nature and kind of just try and reenact it, recreate it, just to give you that sort of, transport you back to Hawaii when you can't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I just feel like sometimes when I see this, it's like my heart rate sort of slows down, like, where you feel like now enjoyment, right? Because it's not the hustle and bustle. It's kind of a place to relax and feel like the slow life, how enjoyable that is. Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's the island life.
Exactly. Don't you remember how we were on Maui and we went down to the big beach down on that south side? Oh my God, isn't that the most glorious place?
It was spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, this these are just yeah, and these are kind of memories of just kind of the visuals that different things that you experienced. I think when you went up on the road to Hana, you went up there, right, on that tour?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that make you feel like that road to Hana, all of this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and it's because it's just you have the brown of the roots, you have the green from like the vines that are growing naturally, and it just and then you have these beautiful flowers that will just enhance it.
Right. So these water tubes that you're using are the pointed ones, right? So it stabs into it.
Exactly.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's basically that water pick.
Right. Excellent.
And I like them because it does have that point, so it's easier to insert into, especially with the roots. It's you want something that's you're gonna help you get it into your structure.
Right. That's excellent mechanics.
And I think we are done.
That is cool. I could see this even like a buffet, like foods, under, over, you know, all of that. Oh my gosh, that could look fantastic.
Absolutely. You can even raise it, like, because, you know, and you even kind of put it, you can create it, attach it to something, and you can have another one kind of, it depends. You have a lot of flexibility because of the wires. It kind of gives it that really stable and sturdiness, so that you have, because you have a lot of places to attach the structure to, that it's not going to change its form.
Right. I mean, I could see there's also, even like when you build nice long ones, you can kind of drape it down off the table, just drip it down. I mean, there's perfect mechanics for all that.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Bruno.
There's design number 1. So I was planning on doing the bouquet holder with the bouquet base and form with the Monstera roots, but I didn't have enough. I only had enough to make this container. So I ordered these. I was going to add them to that structure, and then I'm like, no, these would be great for a wedding bouquet. So this is going to be my base for the wedding bouquet. So I'll show you. I used the wires again. So basically what I did is really create a ring with the wire, create like a circle diameter, and then created a loop for a handle. So 3 wires, and then with the vines, because they're so long, you can keep going around and around. And I did the same wiring technique, whereas I wired on the front and then moved the wire to the back, and front and back, front and back. So then it kind of keeps, the thing I like about that wiring technique is the fact that you don't have to grab another piece of wire and twist. The wire's already there. All you need to do is just literally push it out, twist, or push it back and twist.
So is this
a lot quicker to do?
So is this passion vine?
It is.
Gosh, that's beautiful. I love the tendrils.
Isn't it great?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. It's so fun.
I love that. That is beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Now we get to add some flowers. So I found some gorgeous pink grevillea this week at one of my suppliers. So I know that we can get those. I've seen these in Hawaii. So I'm like, I'm going to use these for my wedding bouquet. And some phalaenopsis. I love this Anthurium. I believe that this one is Linaka, because I love the fact that it's so white on the inside and green on the backside. It's such and I love the bit of pink on the tip. So I thought I would use this for the bouquet, some Cymbidium and some phalaenopsis. And then the great thing about doing this there's a lot of gaps that you can insert, easy to insert your stems into to create your bouquet.
So would you say the binding point, like your holding point, is just below or kind of level with the bottom of the rim, about there?
I actually want the bride to have her hands inside the bouquet, so kind of disappears, and it's
cool.
So it's kind of, I created it so that kind of her hands disappear, and then it's just all about the flowers.
Wonderful. I love that. Having that structure makes it possible for you to, you really don't see a lot of mechanics because it just sort of covers the whole thing. So it makes it so much easier. You're just designing on the top side, and everything is looking just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, you have this place to rest your, the passion vine is your resting place for your flowers. And because you have, you can literally do your spiral technique very easily, and then you have the anchorage on the passion vine on the structure to give you the angle that you want. So you can literally do a cascade, or you can do a round posy. I'm going to kind of do a cascade. Just because I can, and I played around with this morning, and I came up with a different design. But now it's changing as I'm doing it, which I love. That's the beauty of designing.
I'm glad that happens to you too. Because it's kind of instinctive, isn't it? Isn't it like the last insertion leads to the next insertion, doesn't it? That's kind of how it works for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And with a lot of my designing, I do love create. The reason why I do love creating the structures is the structures take a bit of time to create. So as I'm creating the structure, it's kind of like you kind of zone out, but then you start thinking, what flowers would work nicely with this? and then you got to get excited, and it's like, oh, I need this and I need that. That's usually how my design process works. Is I create the structure, and then I figure out the flower.
Right. Yeah, it sort of gives you the template.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love how you're kind of surrounding your grevillea flow, the flow that you created front to back. Yeah, that's beautiful. And the color of the spadix really works really good with grevillea, doesn't it? It brings in
this
that
is the reason why
kind of
I gravitated to this Anthurium for the for the bouquet, just because it's such a the white on the inside. It kind of really does play off nicely.
I think as designers, we get sort of picky about the color of the spadix. I think, you know, initially, like when you first see your first time Anthurium and you see like the red one, the bright red with the yellow spadix, and you think, oh, that's a little bit too much contrast in color, the spadix color and then the spathe color. But you realize that there's some lovely spadix colors and combination of spadix and spathe that is possible. The more you see.
You can actually, if you actually know your, and the great thing about Neotropica, and you kind of grab the book and you see the different varieties, you really can match. You can play with, you have a color story that actually works beautifully because you're picking all the elements that have similar colors in it.
So not only are you playing with a color, sort of the palette, and the kind of working it skillfully, but you're also working with the shapes of the flowers.
Yes.
And contrasting them. Beautiful.
And yeah, and lots of different textures.
Exactly.
All the different flowers, especially with wedding work, you're playing off because you're grouping a lot of the same flowers. So certain flowers will give you such a beautiful a texture, like repeating it over and over.
And having the passion vine structure as a base, you have that beautiful texture to work off of to just sort of frame the whole thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And hold your flowers in place, right? So that it's like you really just, wherever you insert your flowers, it stays exactly where it is. It doesn't really move on you, which is fantastic.
But it's kind of multi-purpose. It not only works structurally, mechanically, but it also works texturally. And also,
but I do love all the
that
passion
fussy line.
Like, I've had passion vine before, but this time with all the little tentacles, it just gives it such a whimsical and beautiful natural look to it.
It's beautiful.
These all yellow Untitleds are probably one of my favorites of Untitleds to use, just because they're like such a happy flower. They're like a ray of sunshine. And it just because they don't have any of that, usually Cymbidium Orchids, they have a bit of that red in it. So obviously they work for, certain designs that variety works, but I find that this yellow is just such a happy flower. And they have so many flowers on it too. They're very full. So now we've created that, like I put the Untitled around, and now you have this beautiful like pink and coral with a bit of the green, and then just kind of ties in with especially on the underside, ties in with the passion vine with the under of the Anthurium, which is quite stunning. And it's a great, your hands are hidden, and so it's a nice, it's a nice bouquet to hold. You don't need a lot of stems. Ideally, when you're creating this sort of armature.
Well, you know what? I was really quiet for quite a moment because I was just in awe, just watching you just design. It was just like a beautiful music, beautiful symphony. It was lovely.
Oh, thank you.
And you know what I love about this? Because as you're adding it, all the different flowers that you're putting into it, the stem count, it became fuller and fuller. But depending on budget, you could have stopped just anywhere because you had such a beautiful finish no matter when you stopped, which is such a great luxury of a design system, isn't it?
Absolutely, especially with weddings, I find a lot of times it's about budget. And sometimes it's like, especially when they're trying to use really unique blooms, you don't need to add more. and just focus on the unique blooms and have something else that's going to enhance it. And you have this beautiful structure that just kind of, just kind of plays off and it just embellishes your blooms.
And you know what? What this represents to me is a look with all tropicals that you can still have such a beautiful, soft, romantic, beautiful bouquet. Because a lot of people think using all tropicals in a bouquet could look too harsh or too modern. And this really isn't. It's just such a lovely, soft look. Beautiful.
Yeah, the soft, and the thing is like most people say all tropicals. They think Anthurium, they think those really hard flowers, but there's so many different other tropical flowers that just enhance the really sharp shapes of the Anthurium, and other exotics that have that sort of feel.
Yeah, it really looks like a real luxury bouquet. It's lovely, beautiful. Bruno.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, next, I'm actually going to show you this amazing container that we actually created from scratch, once again, using the wires. And it's actually created with Monstera roots. From Hawaii, you can get some really long, like they were at least 8 feet long. So you can kind of, you have a lot of, you're going around the container 2 or 3 times. So it has this very uniform, beautiful look to it. And they will last really well as well. So, and what I've done is literally put a vase with oasis inside, and then kind of line the inside with sheet moss, so you don't see the mechanics of inside the container. And for this, I wanted to showcase these babies.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I have a question. Mechanical question. Yep. So does this frame that you created with the Monstera root, does it slip over a container, or does it have a bottom?
It does have a bottom.
Okay.
I have usually what I do with these sort of types of containers, I usually do a birch disc or a wood disc, and then drill onto the sides, and then insert the wires and bend them up, and then start covering it. So then it has a very stable base. This one I didn't. I actually just bent the wires in. But after I created it, I would definitely, going forward, I would do the wood base, because it gives you an extra stability.
Okay, and one more question. I'm always so curious about the mechanics, and I know the audience is also. So the wire that you use as an upright to build this structure, what is that wire?
It's basically an orchid wire, and I'll show you.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. So it needs to be quite stiff so it holds the shape.
This is one of the things that over the years, as I started playing with this sort of technique, first I would kind of wire it, and then the next, when I was doing the binding, I would move where I formed. But the thing with that sort of technique, I found that my structure wasn't stable enough, and it was moving too much, and it didn't stay exactly how I wanted. So then once I discovered these, just changed my world on how to design, because then I know that it's going to stay exactly how I want it, and then I have the flexibility of creating whatever shape I want.
Cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
So basically the container that's on the inside can be anything that just holds your mechanics. Yeah.
As long as it holds, like literally, this one is literally a white cylinder vase.
Ah, perfect. Excellent.
Yeah, and then the thing as well, when you're creating you're custom making your own containers, you can actually make the opening to whatever size of container you're actually planning on using. So as you're creating your container, your vessel, figure out sort of what you're going to put on the inside to hold your either water or oasis, just so that then you know how wide you're going to be able to make it, or how small you need to make it, so that your mechanics are covered, and then you have a water source for your flowers.
It's so organic. I mean, the whole structure building that you're doing, every bit of it with the roots, it's just so organic, and I think just everybody loves that today.
And that's what I love about when I went to Hawaii, the fact that they had so many of these. The main thing with these is the fact that it has to be pliable. Because if it's too rigid, you're not going to be able to manipulate it how you want it. So it's finding a material that does become very pliable, and you can actually mold it to what you want it to be.
Gosh, that's so soft and beautiful. It's like sunshine.
Just so you can see. Yeah.
So this is also the lemon or that all yellow Anthurium?
Exactly.
Gosh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's so spectacular. And the first time that I saw it was when I was in Hawaii. And after that, because it's like, and the one thing about this variety is how full they look.
Yes.
The stems, like it's such a beautiful sized bloom.
Well, when you're accustomed to the Cymbidiums that we were able to get before we discovered the Hawaiian ones, I mean, they were usually really tight and the tips were just buds, and they never opened because they dried up before they opened, so they didn't give you the show that these do. They just so full and open, and seeing all those little almost butterfly shapes, just like so playful and whimsical. Gosh, beautiful.
It's pretty amazing since these were, we started being able to actually get these and for mass use, and it just changes your designs. Now you have this beautiful product to work with, and you're just like, how can you not be inspired and use it often? And then I'm going to play off and add I wanted to kind of create sort of monochromatic. So I love this variety because it has like a pale yellow with a bit of green. With this, I thought that would be a great combination. And one of the things that I wanted is actually I want to bring the Anthurium down the container, because you have the space with the roots so that you're able to insert. This would be great on a bar. Could be great as a standard for a wedding. It's like if you're if you have a yellow bride, there will be no way that they're gonna be like, oh, this is not a nice yellow. And the thing I like about this design is the fact that when the product is so beautiful, you don't need a lot of, like, sometimes I find some people tend to use too many different elements, and you don't really get to appreciate the beauty. Because there's so many things to look at, it makes it too busy. When you're using 2 or 3 flowers in a design, you really get to appreciate the beauty. And there we have it.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Sunshine in a vase.
Oh yeah, I love that the cluster flow of those Anthurium and the faces sort of playfully looking in different directions. That just gives you a wonderful dimension.
Yeah, and it just it really takes the container and becomes one. The design becomes one because you have the flexibility of inserting organic material to kind of bring your eye down. Yeah.
So that's really the perk with that particular kind of structure that you built, is the ability to slip in down below in between, so that it gives you that cascading kind of a feel. Beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a winner. Thank you, Bruno.
Nope, thank you. Well, because we were doing this webinar from Canada, I thought that what is Canadian but birch? We have birch everywhere. So I decided to cover a planter. I actually went to my suppliers, and they actually had this on the showroom. It was all scuffed up. There was a crack in it, and I was just like, are you gonna throw that out? Can I have it? And she's like, oh, absolutely, take it. And then I'm like, we duct taped it, and then we cut the birch into little squares and basically hot glued it onto the container. So give it a new life. So this design, I would say it's for, definitely a standard, a standard design. I designed it. I'm going to be designing it in a bucket. So, the reason why I do that is for transport, and also because it's like, it does, if you're going to take both of them at the same time, it's very heavy. So you want to kind of create it so that it can be just literally dropped into the container and taken out, because it has, especially with standards, as we know, they like to reuse it several times. So it's a great option to kind of, and then you have a great container. I love the texture that the birch creates. Okay, I'm going to start with these amazing large shaloom leaves. The thing that I wanted to is that once you're using heliconia, I find that a lot of times we don't have enough foliage big enough to complement the size of the bloom. So that's why I wanted to use some large leaves. And also, if you're usually with standards, you're going to have the juxtaposition of framing the couple beautifully with some large tropical leaves on the outside and then the flowers on the inside. You have such beautiful product, and the flowers are just so spectacular. It's just it's we have a lot of more options now than they did before. So it's kind of trying to showcase these new options and being able to show them in a different light.
I mean, this clearly shows really a lot about proportion and scale, because now they don't look the giant that they are individually. Now it's all in scale, to the size of the container, to the size of the foliages, and the size of the flower.
And because you have such beautiful product, it doesn't take you very long to do it, because it just fills really quickly.
So true.
And then
that's one of the things that I've always, oh yeah, gosh. That's one of the things I always love about like you doing presentation, is that you're so skillful at doing things on the spot and so fast at it. It's like magic. I really feel like floristry really is a magic show when people see how you design so quickly. It's really, just magic in front of their eyes. Wonderful.
And you know how that magic happens? When you have beautiful product to work with.
So true.
Because it makes the magic seem a lot easier, because once you have beautiful product, it speaks for itself. You just need to put it in the right place and just to make it balanced.
No, this is a real statement really about scale and proportion, because most florists, when they look at that particular obake Anthurium, they're like, oh my gosh, that's way too big. I can't do anything with it. But look at how it works in this context, because it's all in scale. Fantastic.
Yes, because it's like, and the fact that you were able to get it, this size, this variety and this size is such a unique and beautiful element.
Yeah, because really, if you use that like a normal small size Anthurium in this, it would be too small.
Absolutely. I'll just show you. It just would get lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's way too small.
It just would get lost. And you need a lot of them, whereas now you don't need as many, but it fills the area that you want to.
Yeah. Perfect. I love that kind of almost that dark brownish kind of tone to it.
This part right here on this is just, because it has a red tinge, but it's like you can easily play off with the brown, because there's so many different colors in this flower.
Exactly. And it actually, in that flower alone, it transitions from the reds or the red oranges of the heliconia and to the green. It kind of bridges it, doesn't it?
It does very nicely.
So wouldn't you advise, if somebody was wanting to get married in Hawaii, they really wanted to be there to have this kind of a real tropical look? I mean, you can transform.
Absolutely.
If they can't travel, you can transform a space into the Hawaiian look right there.
Very much so. It's like you're basically, you're basically creating this environment that it literally, when your guests walk in, they're like, you could be, because once you walk into a venue, you can be anywhere. So if you create the right decor, you literally are transported, and you have that feel of, you're in the Hawaii, and it's just such a great, I just love the colors that you get, the intensity, and with the tropicals. And there we have it, our big statement piece that could be used in many different locations. Obviously created first for a wedding ceremony, and then you have the options of moving it anywhere that it needs to be moved. And it's it's been such a pleasure to be working with such amazing product from Hawaii, and I've been very, very grateful to be asked to be part of this wedding celebrations this year.
Yeah, it's really quite wonderful looking at it from my point of view, seeing that arrangement on the pedestal brings it even more prominent and in scales. So fantastic job on that one. And thank you so much, Bruno, for doing such a wonderful job with all tropicals, because it's something that we hadn't done with Wedding Celebration, to work with all tropicals, so that you've really produced a beautiful example of the Neotropica design, all tropicals. So thank you so much for a wonderful job.
And we are sticking around for any questions afterwards, so feel free to ask as many questions as you like.
Absolutely great. Thank you.
Welcome back. Oh my goodness gracious. Bruno, are you there?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Bruno.
Hello, Hitomi.
That was
Fabulous job.
incredible. We got a lot of great feedback from the viewers out there about all those pieces that you were making. And I was sitting here with the crew and Eric Tenoy from Greenpoint, and we were just blown away at a lot of the mechanics that you were using and how everything turned out so beautiful with all that Hawaiian tropical foliage in there and flowers. So thank you for making
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun to come up with and use. Such a great product to kind of explore and show how to use it in a different way.
We got a lot of questions, so maybe I should jump into those, Hitomi, unless you had something to add right away?
I think so, because I saw them coming in, and I knew they would, because there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. So shoot.
Okay, great. They're directed at each of you, so I'll just start. So Bruno, one question that was originally sent was a specific size used to order the small Alocasia that you were using.
The small Alocasia, I actually was a local plant. I got some plants, and then I just cut them off the plants. I kind of found them here in Toronto.
And you would consider that small if you were to order it?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. That's one that we got right there. Okay, here's what type of wire were you using for the arrangements with the Passion Vine semi-sphere piece?
It was the same wires that I used for all my structures, and I believe that the actual wire is it's a plastic covered wire, and I believe it's a 16 gauge, so it's pretty thick, and it does hold quite well. I'm kind of guessing. I will find out from my supplier, because I get it from my orchid guy, and so I'm going to kind of ask him what's the gauge on that wire, and then I can pass it on.
Actually, Bruno, so it's a fairly thick gauge, right? Like almost like the orchid wire. So that's going to be probably a smaller number, because the gauge goes backward. So I'm guessing that it's probably like 8 or even 6. Yeah. Okay.
That's good to know.
And that's why teamwork makes the dream work. So thank you very much.
It's so true.
How did you make the holder with the Passion Vine?
So what I created was I literally created a ring with the wires, and then kind of did a 2-wire grid going over to create the dome, and then literally started with the Passion Vine going down the wires, because you have 4 wires, and then when you get down to the bottom ring, you kind of just cover it with the Passion Vine, so it disappears. But it was kind of creating the dome with the wires, and then starting at the top of the dome with the Passion Vine.
And we keep getting questions about the Passion Vine, which I think is actually a great element to use. I love it. It grows out here wild, but to see it used in the arrangements you guys are doing. I love the way you pull the leaves off and save the tendrils the way you're doing. That's amazing.
That's the Passion Vine. I was amazed at how long they were when we received them. And then once we started removing the foliage, all that beautiful tentacles and all that beautiful movement in it, then when you put it all together, just like without any flowers, it was spectacular. So it's like, I was very happy with how it all turned out.
And somebody
Actually, I just want to mention about the passion vine. The beauty of it is you can leave more leaves on if you need it for coverage, but taking it away gives it a really amazing linear flow, visual flow that really opens it up and become more transparent. So the diversity of it is absolutely amazing. And the thickness of it, because so many of our vines on temperate side is very thin and it's too wispy sometimes for it to show up. So the passion vine is absolutely amazing material.
And there's a few different types, correct? Where the leaves are a bit different. I think there's a yellow and a purple, and that also changes in terms of the leaf structure.
Yes. So you know what, Josh? Josh, like you need to let everybody, all the growers in Hawaii know to bring them on because we want to see them all.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
I'm writing that down for sure. And also, where do you guys get it from? Where do you order it from? They were asking.
We got it from Greenpoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Somebody was wondering, how do they get a Neotropica book? That's one directed at probably for me, actually, because you can order that book straight from Hawaii Neotropica Guide at gmail.com. You can email for that, and we'll post that, and we'll put it up as well, how to get the Neotropical Guide book. Any input on that, Hitomi, on how to get one?
Well, the thing is, it is free, and you just have to pay for shipping. And so it's very accessible. Just sign up for it, and Judy will ship it out.
Okay, great. Okay, so I've got another one directed at you, Hitomi, here. Oh, where did you get the water bottle with the bent spigot? Or was it?
You just Google it. It's really
Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You just Google it and find it on Amazon and get it shipped in. It usually runs like $5 to $8, something like this. It's not terribly expensive, and it's usually at like a chemistry lab equipment. That's kind of where it comes from. It comes from the labs. That's where it comes from. Yeah.
There's probably a lot of specific little things you learn over the years, I'm sure, where the tools come into play like that, where they come from different industry and whatnot. I find the same thing in our world. So always good to know where to get those little things. And luckily, we do have Amazon at one level. So, okay, so Hitomi, how did you get the shape of the wash paper covered water tubes?
Oh, that's really easy. Basically, all you have to do with a piece of washi paper is tear it or cut it in a triangular shape so that you roll from the fattest side, the widest side, and you roll it so that you get that kind of a more thicker middle. So they just cut into pieces of triangles and then just rolled. That's how it's built. Easy.
Any input, Bruno, on that? Same?
Same, I would say.
And maybe this one.
I don't know if actually, I don't know if any of you remember, but when I was young, we used to make beads out of like a magazine paper, and we would cut into a triangle and roll it from the widest side in, and you get these beautiful beads that we made into necklaces.
Oh,
so
that's
it's the same
cool.
way. It's the same way.
I actually do remember those. This one could go maybe for both of you. We'll start with Bruno. One of our viewers lives in Zone 3B in Alberta and was wondering what a good substitute for a passion vine might be. Clematis maybe, or something available from florists that they could use?
Definitely the clematis is a good one. It's a good vine. Even like if you get thin grapevine, it will give you as long the main thing is as long as it's pliable. Like if you get it pretty fresh, you can actually manipulate it to give you that same sort of look.
I agree. That's a perfect substitution.
Well, there you go. Good. Perfect. So Hitomi, is there a resource that lists flowers and foliage that can survive without water for the length of the arrangement's life?
Okay, that's a good question because it's really the latest way of thinking in design that we can, in fact, free stem some material into like flowers into a design for a short-term event. Because the flowers for weddings especially needs to last for upwards of say 12 to 18 hours from the time that you put it together. So if you know how long that the flowers last, you can decide whether it needs to be in water tube or foam, or if it can in fact be designed without water. So what I'm trying to say is it's a lot by experiment. It's like it's such new way of thinking that we have to be testing things out all the time to see how long it holds up. And it also depends on where you're at. Like if you're in Arizona, where the air is so arid, that things just dry up really quickly. You can't do that. But I know for sure that in Hawaii, for instance, because of the humidity, and that's the reason why in Hawaii, all those beautiful lace stay looking beautiful. And you can use it day to day even because it holds up. But in Arizona, those will shrivel up. So you just have to understand and know your area and how long something will last. Like for example, like roses, a lot of the South American roses, they're so sturdy that they really almost don't require water for upwards of 18 hours or more even. So to put it in water tube, each one of them, or to put it in drippy foam in a structure is not necessary because by the time you dismantle, it's only been up for like 8 to 12 hours. So you just have to know, you have to kind of experiment a little bit distinctly to suit your climate. So nothing has been published. We're putting together constantly a list of things that you can do this, but do test it out in your own area to make sure that this is possible. That's kind of where we are. It's very new way of thinking.
Which I also think is a fantastic new way of thinking, because we used to think it's like, oh, flowers have to be in water, but when you're doing an event work, you need to literally have your form and your structure, and then you drop in your flowers. As long as you have them hydrating until the event before you actually just put it on the structure, they will definitely last, not a problem.
Yeah, and just remember, the beauty of that way of thinking is that you don't have any one-time use of foam that has to be disposed. You also, in dismantling, it's a lot easier to dismantle, just like Bruno said in one of his structure. You just take it up, make a quick bouquet, and you give it away to the guests that are at the wedding. So that the dismantling, and it's really also about labor, because just think of how many hours it takes to water tube every flower. That is not necessary if you know that the flower that you're using is going to hold up. So it really affects a lot of the whole commerce of installation work for corporates, parties, events, and weddings.
I wonder, I just personally for Bruno, I was wondering how did you learn the mechanics that you've devised for your arrangements over time? Did you?
A lot of trial and error. The paper covered wires I actually learned from Hitomi when I went to Hawaii the last time, and because she showed that wrapped in yarn, and then I kind of started playing around with different gauges, and then sort of kind of like, oh wow, this works, and then you kind of just keep evolving and seeing how which ones are you're going to use for what kind of design and container you want to create, or yeah, that's just pretty much whatever vessel. I'm like, whatever, I lost my train of thought. So it's like, it depends on sort of, I usually start with my container or my organic form, and then I kind of add the flowers and go from there. So, but it's kind of creating it, using it, and then seeing how it actually holds. If it's like, by the time you're done and it's starting to lose its shape, then you need to figure out, okay, obviously those wires were not strong enough, and you need to, next time I'm going to do it, I'm going to try with maybe doubling up the wires so that it doesn't move on you, and then it becomes a very sturdy, structure.
Hey, Josh, you know what? It's just like you guys in a growing business. It's about sharing ideas and just having these discussions And that's what we do as designers is we watch what some of the other designers are doing, glean some of the great ideas that you can then personalize and use it yourself. And it just keeps building. It becomes very symbiotic, and we help each other to get to a higher level of designing skills. And so it's really the same thing as what goes on in the growing industry. It's I think we're all really, in the end, all together at one, because without the growers' beautiful product, we can't do what we do. But
Absolutely.
we share as designers things that we've learned working with your materials, and find out like, oh, that's how you did it, or oh, that's how you did it. And that's how we grow on the design side to become better and better at it.
And it's amazing. Was that Monstera root you were using on the last piece you did, Bruno?
Yes. Yeah, and then now it actually is actually I put a light in it, and then it's now a shade, and it's really cool.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
That's so creative.
You know what? Actually, Josh, that's the other thing that, that's really interesting. When you make something artful like what Bruno did, and he's made it a permanent piece that he can use as a container, turn it into a shade and all of that. There's something to be said about that, because it's all part of sustainable floristry. When you make something and you use it over and over and over again because of the artfulness and the skill in construction, that when you reuse something like this, that's just part of the good sustainable practices, that you don't just make something and trash it. Like that one-time use thing has to that's over. We have to stop doing that. Make things and throw it away. Trash. No, we make things that are really beautiful, that we can then reconfigure it, repurpose it over and over again. That's what designing in sustainable way is all about.
And I love that. It's and that's the thing. Like once you've invested the time in creating something, then the next time you actually pick it up again, you're going to come up with something else that you never even thought of it, because you already have this thing. It's like, oh, what if I did it this way? But it's having those things and you're looking at it and having it around, and it's like, oh, inspiration hits.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome.
I love that. Another question, maybe from my perspective, being a foliage grower, an interior plant grower guy. Eric was talking about a design element back in the day where, Hitomi, you would take large specimen trees, decorate the actual foliage, and also bring in the potted foliage element to that, and then be able to deconstruct that over time, giving maybe a hotel lobby as a good example, an opportunity to have first a very dramatic piece maybe for a holiday event, and then slowly break that down, but keep it going over time for that particular client to have a long time. Do you see something like that as a trend maybe coming back again?
I don't know that it was a trend that really happened. We gave that idea out there at one of the symposium we held at one time. And I think it was a little too soon, because it was before the big plant boom. And I really feel like now people are more open to ideas on how you can take a beautiful potted, 12-inch big palm and kind of even decorate it with flowers for the occasion, for the pew, for instance. If there's a big arch in the front with big areca palm fronds on it, then why would you not do an alley down the pews with areca palm that's decorated with orchids? There's really so many ways that we can do this. And I think potted plant has a big role in the floral design world, because you have the size already that you just build on. Absolutely.
Do you ever use that, Bruno?
Think about it, Josh.
Yeah, trust me.
No, but the sustainable is becoming very, 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 very big with even corporate work. Because I found that before with corporate, there was a lot of wastage. It was all about the event, and then just like literally after the event, everything would go into the garbage. Now they're pushing for more plants and stuff that is not going to be discarded. And so, which I'm very happy about that it's going in that direction. But following what Hitomi said, that is a phenomenal idea. Using like you already have the big show, and then enhancing it with actual fresh flowers. It just gives you such a great statement. And then you can just take that away, and then not all of it. You can reuse the flowers, but the plants you just literally need to water it and give it some love.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
I see that happening for sure. I think the time is right. It's time is right now.
Yeah, that is one of the good things about COVID that has happened, because people now, we're at home and now they want to surround themselves with plants. So there's that need for that greenery for plants in their lives. So yeah, they have a better appreciation for nature.
Absolutely. That's the real upside to what has happened being at home. Yeah,
totally.
I agree. That's great. So another question maybe from my perspective too is do you guys have a lot of challenges finding containers for all of your things? I know you built a lot in these, but one challenge I've always had over the years is finding good containers. Do you guys have a challenge with that up in Canada?
Oh, absolutely. It's been like right now there's a big shortage of everything. Like it's like every other week it's like, what is the new thing that is no longer available for the time being? It's forcing us to be more creative and thinking outside the box because we have no other option. And sometimes I actually like when that happens because you come up with things that you never even thought of because you were forced to.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, at the we're going to talk a little bit about like the sustainable floristry practice, like actually my workshop, hands-on workshop at the end of the day, because I think we need to move on from the single use anything to be trashed. I think we need to learn to recycle everything. And so, yeah, containers. If you're short of containers, what do you have around you that you can use or reuse or to repurpose it in a different way? And that's where the botanicals come in, the vines and things. Like that's why, like in my piece also that I showed, the dried foliages and how beautiful the Hawaiian foliages, how they curl. And the challenge for me always with that is that if you don't preserve it in some way, then it just crumbles and dries and it fades away. But when you paint it and coat it with paint so that it will hold up for the next 5, 10, 15 years, then that becomes a piece of art, or you can actually design into it, add flowers to it. So like that's one of the best thing, that a hidden thing about Hawaiian foliages is they dry the best of any kind of foliage. They hold up so beautifully. They're sturdy. They're more architectural and sculptural. After it dries, it curls naturally into the most beautiful shapes. All we have to do is paint it so that it keeps, so it stays with us for a number of years. Yeah, that's the whole side. That came from COVID. I had time to keep looking at it and saying, what am I going to do with this thing? Wonderful. Yeah.
One trend I saw coming that was happening a lot back in California was using a lot of different types of mosses. Are you guys using different mosses? Maybe Bruno, you could take that one.
There's a lot of more preserved mosses available now than there used to be, and so many different varieties and different shades. So like a couple of weeks ago, I just did I did wall pieces that were all just preserved moss and different colors and textures. You can create some amazing pieces that becomes an art piece. So the moss is just, you have such a beautiful texture that comes with it. And now that it's available in so many different colors, there's so much more options and more, you just let creativity flow and kind of come up with anything really, with the fact that there is so much available.
I just have to say, in addition to that, that's where actually the Hawaiian plants comes in. Because Hawaiian plants, especially like when we watched, was it Dr. Baldos that was talking about sustainability, some of the Hawaiian plants, peperomias and that are coming up, those kind of special plants and or all those beautiful orchid plants, for instance, done into a kokedama ball and installed into those moss art. Oh my gosh, that's like a living art piece. Yeah. And that's perfect for corporate offices, etc. Fantastic way to incorporate plants. So there's a lot of that
unique.
going on.
Yes, and it's a very unique way of introducing like something live to a really cool, design structure.
Interestingly enough, like a lot of people didn't really, florists didn't gravitate to water tubes and those water bottles because they thought that like if you send things with that kind of watering system that people will forget to water. One of the things that I found with corporate work is when you send those pieces with the water tubes in it, those receptionists love watering with the water bottle. They love taking care of those things. That like it's better than them remembering how to water the vase with a foam in it. Oh no, they want to keep watering and filling up those water tubes. And so it was it's a contrary to what florists thought that would be a hassle for a customer. They actually love it.
I love the use of tillandsias that you were doing. Bruno, do you use a lot of air plants in your arrangements as well?
Yes, yeah. The varieties and the sizes that you're able to get now, and they're quite amazing. And a lot of our corporate work, we tend to use a lot of it. Just kind of, it's a great. First of all, I love the color of it, and then just it's a great thing that we kind of use it on weekly stands, and then comes back to us, and we get to reuse it so many times. So it's such a great product.
Yeah, that seems like another Hawaiian product that we could really help out with. I know they do great up in where we are in Curtistown. Tillandsias do. So, well, we're coming out up on our next segment. So I wanted to make sure we got enough time to thank Bruno and just really the feedback from all the arrangements that you made and from all the viewers were amazing. So maybe just take a moment and have a sign off. You could say something nice.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this, and it was such a great, to come up with something, with product that we kind of see all the time. How do you come up with something that's unique? So I hope that with the techniques and mechanics that I showed you, you kind of go out and try it and see where it takes you, and just have fun with it. Don't get too stressed about it's not gonna. Just have fun. First thing is try it, because once you try it with your hands, it has memory, and you'll keep doing it. Because if you don't try it, you're probably going to forget
it. Love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing. Is it snowing in Toronto yet?
No, not yet. But we're supposed to get some this weekend. We're supposed to get some snow. It put people in the Christmas spirit, which is great.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're worried about snow here in Hilo too for that. So.
Oh, that's not good.
No. Just a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for spending your day on Saturday with us. We know that you're many hours ahead and that very busy guy. So really, really appreciate all that and that effort into that beautiful video you guys created.